So will the British taxpayer have to fork out the estimated £20 million for the couple and baby Archie's round-the-clock security?
Well, joining us to discuss this is former Royal Protection Officer Ken Wharfe and journalist Ateh Jewel, who has written a lot about Meghan and Harry. Very good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Ken Wharfe, this figure of £20 million to look after the family, is that accurate?
I think it is accurate. I mean, you know, it's a bit of an unknown environment they're moving into here. If you look at the average cost of the average fee or salary of a protection officer currently employed, it was about 100,000. If you look at their security, Meghan, Harry and a baby, you're looking at 2 per person minimum. So there's 600,000. That doesn't include the accommodation, the travelling, the administration of actually running something like this. So, you know, my original estimate was something between 1.5 to 2 million, but it's going to grow.
And only this week alone. I mean, we don't know for sure that Archie is not coming on this trip. I mean, it struck me as slightly odd, I have to say,
that they'd leave baby
that both
Archie at
parents
home.
would be in London and this little 8-9-month-old baby is left back in Canada, but that's a different issue. But on the financial aspect of this, that means that Archie has to be protected in Canada while both his parents have to be protected here.
He's part of the security package, Piers, because it doesn't matter whether he stays there or comes to the United Kingdom. The building they're staying in has to be secured even when they're not there. So there's all the additional residential security costs involved in that. But from my point of view, I mean, Archie is probably the biggest threat to their family than their parents, in the sense there's a real risk of a kidnap here, given the publicity, and a lot of it more negative now.
And look, let me make one thing crystal clear about this. Whatever your view of Meghan, Harry, whatever, and I've said plenty about it, they absolutely do need high-level security. And we saw with Princess Diana that when you get rid of Royal Protection Squad officers, you've got to make damn sure the people that you bring in are of a similar high standard. On this, what is the sensible solution? Tony Blair, for example, as a former British Prime Minister, automatically gets security. But my understanding is that when he's doing private corporate work, he pays back a large amount of the costs of that.
Well, I think, you know, that's the whole point. I mean, we know what happened with Diana in 1997 because of the inefficient security that was afforded her at that time. We cannot go down the private sector here, because the whole point is that with security you need access to government intelligence in this country and abroad. The answer is, and this might be unprecedented, but I think given the fact that the Queen now subsidises the security provided or given to Beatrice and Susanna, I think now is the time to look at, if only to appease the British taxpayer, that the Queen herself and even his father should look at a way of subsidising this security bill, because there's just no way, in my view, that this can be afforded to go out to the private sector.
OK, Ateh Jewel, 90%, I think, of Good Morning Britain viewers, when asked in our poll, which we put out yesterday, I think it was, last one I think it was 90%, they don't want to pay for this security bill because it's so huge.
I strongly disagree. Prince Harry, we've all grown up watching him, from that cheeky little boy to a soldier who's put his body and the life on the line for this country. Whether you like it or not, being a prince of the realm is not a normal job. He's got his P45, but he still is number 6 in line to the throne. That baby Archie's number 7. I think it is our duty of care as a British taxpayer to take care of them.
Except
not to throw them
the
to
argument will go against it is that if they were only doing what they implied they were going to be doing, which is charitable work and so on, that's one thing. But the very first thing they did was fly down to Miami to a very private, exclusive bank event, JP Morgan, in which they got paid, apparently, somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million. Now, if they're going to be using their royal status to make that kind of money on the private sector from banks, the British taxpayer, who's struggling right now, times are tough...
This is true.
They were like, why on earth should we now be paying for their security if they can afford it?
Because Prince Harry, whether you are on the side of the monarchy or not, and that's another discussion, I can come back, I've got a rather soft spot for the monarchy, but whether you like it or not, he is a prince of the realm, he's one of us. And what...
But no one disputes that. I think the central point of this argument is if they're going to be making that kind of money on the private sector without doing any...
He did not have a choice to be born into the role.
But here's my point.
And whether you step away or not, he is still a public figure.
Let me finish my point. He has quit royal life. He's quit royal duties. This is the last week we're going to see.
He didn't quit being a royal, which he was born into, and he wasn't asked to be born into.
He has quit...
And I think as his people...
Let me put the question to you.
Yes.
He has quit performing royal duties, or that has been what has been decided.
He's still doing the Invictus Games, and he still said he wanted to be more...
Games is a private...
Didn't he say in his statement that he wanted to be more a part of supporting the Queen, but he wasn't allowed to?
Right.
He's doing everything he's been asked to do.
We are where we are.
Yeah.
Because of their decision, it has been decided with the Queen that they will no longer be performing royal duty. That is normally the deal with the British taxpayer. If you perform royal duties, then the taxpayer pays for you. The moment you're not doing any duty, but you're making millions and millions of dollars as private citizens trading, as some would see, on your royal status, why should the British taxpayer continue to pay for any part of your life?
Because he is a symbol of this country. Whether you like it or not, he's stripped of his royal duties, he's playing ball, he's doing everything he's been asked to do. They've dropped royal, they've dropped the title, they're not taking money, they're even paying their home improvements back. They're doing everything they can to be transparent. And I think they deserve for us not to throw them to the wolves and give them basic protection.
Ateh makes the critical point, which is even though they have sort of been divorced from the royal family, even though they are now going to go and do private commercial events, even though they may now sort of have a celebrity life, Prince Harry remains in line to the throne. He remains a royal by birth, and they remain under threat. I mean, at risk.
You're absolutely right. I'm not disagreeing with what Ateh said is right. I think you've got... I'm agreeing with Piers here that it does come down to a question of cost. You know, the very fact that this is a huge chunk coming out of the taxpayer's pocket, there has to be there is transparency here. Now, all I'm saying is maybe the time is now for changes to happen, because, you know, he has to be protected. He is incredibly at risk now, but given, as I'm saying, the negative publicity he receives and also the fact he's in a foreign country.
The thing is that
what I was about is I do think now that the Prince of Wales, his father, and the Queen should look at some way of subsidising this
privately subsidising it,
privately,
as opposed to out of the public purse or the sovereign grant.
Exactly that. That's my point. Because whatever happens, and I've heard so many ideas and rumours that this cannot go out to the private sector. That would be a disaster. For the very point we discussed, Piers, that it would be a disaster for them.
They are symbols of our Britishness, and we cannot let anything.
Well, they are, but they've decided not to live in Britain. They've decided to go and live abroad. They're living in a very glamorous mansion.
But the threat level to them doesn't change.
No disrespect, Piers, but you do sound a bit like a great aunt from a Jane Austen novel. You know, he's taken a wife that you don't approve of, he's born a child, he's living different choices, and then off he goes. I don't think he should be cut out of the will. I don't think he should be thrown...
I don't quite get why I'm a Jane Austen wife.
It sounds
my point is actually, like I said at the start, look,
he's put his body on the
Harry Meghan debate, in many ways, the Harry and Meghan debate has been resolved, in the sense that they tried to do things their way. They announced at the start of the year, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to be a progressive new members of the monarchy. And the Queen has basically turned around and said, quite rightly, in my view, the monarchy is more important. If you want to do this, if you want to go and live abroad and you want to trade off the royal status, you can't do that officially with the royal name. And I think the Queen was quite right to do that. But putting aside all the debate about whether we like them or not doesn't really matter. The question is, how should they be protected and how should that be paid for? And I don't see any difference between what they're doing and what someone like Tony Blair does, where some of the work he does is charitable and some of it is commercial. Where they're on a commercial jolly to Miami on private jets to make millions of dollars, I don't think the British taxpayer should be paying for their security. But they should be... In other words, they can have the Royal Protection Squad officers who are the best in the world.
But not to pay for it.
But they should, in those circumstances, they should be paying for whatever that percentage of the cost is.
I think, as I said, he wasn't asked to be born into this. He is a royal
but on that
blood.
point, do you not agree with me that if they're making commercial millions from purely commercial private opportunities, they should be paying back some of the costs for having royal protection?
They're not taking any public funding. They're repaying their money for
But security is public funding.
You know what? I think we owe it to them. I think, as a young father, I think the British people have a huge heart. They have a lot of compassion. We grew up watching this little boy turn from a cheeky little boy into a soldier.
But that heart's not going to extend to hundreds of millions of dollars.